All right, we are now live. So we'll start with the basics. Remote meeting information. I'm Norm Corbin. I'm the chair of the Northborough Historic District Commission meeting. This open meeting of the Northborough Historic District Commission is being conducted by video pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. So the whole purpose of this is in order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of this commission are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows this commission to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link that was listed on the original agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. All right, so we got the basics out of the way. The first step is I need to do a roll call, make sure everybody's live. So, Mr. Smith?
Yes. Here.
Amanda?
Here.
Mike?
Here.
Bob?
Here.
Leslie?
Here.
Tom Reardon?
Present.
And Brian Swanson. All right. I do need someone to record as a secretary this evening because Bruce couldn't make it and Millie could not make it. So who would like to take some notes and to summarize our meeting? That would be very helpful. It's not a real big deal because it's already, since it's recorded, you can just go back to the recording and confirm that you've got it right.
Sorry, I'm doing the review of the preservation plan, so I'm kind of trying to focus on that right now. So I'm gonna.
We're not all right, yeah. So
I'm just saying that's yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Leslie. I got it. Brian Swanson, could you give it a stab?
I can try. Let me get a paper. I'll be right back.
Of course. I didn't realize it needs paper.
All right, we'll try it.
Yeah, Brian, you'll be fine. You just send it to me and then we work together to tune it in. All right, thank you for doing that.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, so we'll start on the agenda. The prior meeting minutes. Millie was unable to finish them in time, so there are no meeting minutes to be reviewed this time. They'll be reviewed next month. Old business, CPA projects update. Yeah, I remember we said this last time, but the Howard Street Burial Ground interpretive sign is up and running. So that is done. We can knock that one off the list. The Howard Cemetery nomination for the National Register. I did contact the contractor. I reminded her there's one big loose end with that cemetery. It has to do with old information says it was started, the first burials were from a throat distemper in I'm thinking 45-ish, but that might not be right. And quite a few children had died from that. But yet we're not able to find who those who those children were and where they are buried. And I've asked her if she could dig a little bit into that. It seems to be a loose end. It could very well be the fact that the church burned down and all the documents are gone, but I've asked her to spend a little time on that. So that's the CPA projects that we have right now. The planned demolitions at the old state hospital grounds.
Norm, can I interrupt for a second?
Of course.
The interpretive sign at the Brigham Street Cemetery, how excuse me, how is that for the leaking? Did they correct it?
Oh, no, they fixed that. Yeah. Yeah,
They
reported
did,
out
okay.
last month. That's all set.
Okay,
That's
great.
all
All right,
set.
thank
They
you.
fixed it. So the planned demolitions at the old state hospital grounds. Remember last week we voted that we were accepting what they were mentioning, and then I signed it and I wrote a note on it saying that we were expecting to be the brass signs on a stone. And they got right back to me and said, no, that's not what they were agreeing to. They're agreeing to something that's more like the interpretive sign we put in at Brigham Street. So I was a little disappointed that it wasn't what we really wanted, but I looked at what they've done in the past. I'll pull up a few pictures, and they do a good job. It'll be very informative. Let me see if I can find out, just so we're on the same page. So this is, I did this right. Share screen. Let's see if I can do that. Where'd my share screen go? There it is. Do I have permission? Share. All right, what are you looking at? You're looking at the link, I think, right?
Yes.
All right, that's not what I want you to look at. All right, here we go. You looking at a picture of an information slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is something that's, Bob Light, you know where this one is. This is on the old
Right.
state hospital grounds by the lake.
On the
There's
gazebo, right, yeah.
in the gazebo. There's, I think, 6 of them, if I remember right. I took a few panels. So
I
this
think
is what they're
I think there's
looking at.
4, Norm, but yeah,
There's 4? Okay, thanks, Bob.
I think so.
So this is certainly much more information with more pictures that we could ever consider putting on a brass marker. So it's going to be much more informative, much more detailed than, which is what they're recommending. So this is what they'll be looking for. We got, with the agreement, of course, is for 2 markers, one for the Native American information and one for the farm section of the old state hospital grounds. So they said that I would be contacted with someone, the group that's actually going to be paying for them, and to work with them on the signage. I haven't heard from that person yet. So in due time, I'm sure we'll be contacted to start to figure out how to put this thing together. Not sure how it works exactly, how much they can put in, how much information they have to add. So the loose end here is who has this information and who's going to pull it together. But if you ever have a chance to go to the gazebo near the Lake Chauncey, it's very interesting read. They are very informative. So that's where that stands. Any comments on that?
Looks great.
Yeah, it looks great.
And let's see. CPA funding for 2022. So the Brigham Street Cemetery, the Brigham Street Burial Ground program. So remember the topic was removing the dead trees. There's something like 25 or 30 of them. Looking at some fencing. In last month, we came up with what we like with the granite pillar and a chain. I forwarded that to Scott, the DPW director, and he got some quotes on that. And he'll also consider putting in some gravel so people can pull off the road safely and read the signs. So if I did this right, I can have, the numbers are big. This is going to be a very expensive project. Give me a minute to see if I can find it. So you guys can hear me fine, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the removal of the trees is about $40,000. The
Say 40,000?
Wow.
40,480 is the estimated cost for the tree removal.
We've had a lot of trees removed in our house. I don't understand how it could possibly be that much. Is there something?
Well, this is the numbers that'll go in, and these are the questions that the CPA committee should be asking. I've just had a quote on a tree taken down from my house for $4,800. So,
Yeah, wow.
so if we're taking 30 trees down at that kind of number, we're well into that 40,000. But
Well,
I
when
think
you get
it's
the-
legitimate to make sure. But that also includes grinding the stumps and disposing the wood and all of that. So,
Way at the back
I'm
lot,
sorry.
way at the back corner of the lot that's hard to get at, and you can't drive over the grave sites, right?
They felt that they could get it. They could drive carefully over the grave sites. So they felt that that wasn't a problem. So again, these are all questions. I think these are the kinds of questions that are going to come up, of course, when it goes in front of the CPC committee to discuss it. The fencing came down to, and I thought I had that one open. Give me a second. I gotta search for it. It wasn't open. I don't like to remember numbers off the top of my head because they're usually wrong. No, not that one. All right. The numbers for, there are several estimates for putting in the fencing. So these are these large granite posts with the chain. It's 240 linear feet that they have to put in, and the total is 43 posts. It depends on the size of the granite. So for the best case granite, which is the 8 by 8 inch, it's a $62,000 fence to put up by the Brigham Street.
Wow.
So there are other options on the estimate. It could go as low as $50,000 depending on some changes to the size of the granite or some changes to the design of the chain. But you're still looking at those kinds of numbers. And lastly is for the gravel, if they want to put in some gravel to clear out an area so that you can just pull over safely and not drive on the dirt. I think the number is about $2,000. So where it is right now, we'll be putting in, I'm working with Scott on this, so we'll be putting in the CPA funding request for those kinds of dollars to have that, have essentially the project, the long-term project we've had with the Brigham Street Cemetery concluded. So I'm sure there'll be some questions as this goes through the process, but right now I'll fill that in and work with Scott to get the document in. You should see the final document at our next meeting, which is October 18th. Because October 18th, we have to finalize any of these forms. So that's the status for Brigham Street. The next one is the Howard Street Cemetery signage, which should be straightforward because we put some of these similar signs up before. I'd like someone to volunteer to do that. I can forward all the information we had from the last time. So give it some thought, get back to me if you want to volunteer to do the paperwork and get that project on the right forms. All
It's
right,
just paperwork, right? I mean, there's the design it's the identical to the one,
correct.
except the
Correct.
year would be different. Is the year
Yeah,
different?
we'd have
because of
to
the
figure
entrance?
out I don't know if we put the year the land was purchased or if we put the year the first burial was put. That would be a question for how to date it. but we don't need, I mean, that can be decided way a long time from now. That doesn't affect the cost or the concept of installing the sign. So that one I'm looking for someone else to handle one. So let me know one way or the other. That would also should be ready for the October meeting. That would be key.
Do you, are you thinking of the same type of sign as Brigham Street?
I want to make, this is the big brown sign that hangs on a post.
Oh, okay. All right.
Geez, do I have that picture available? Give me a second. I'll pull it up, make sure we're all on the same page. Okay. Let's see what we got here.
I've got it.
You
want
got a
it?
photo of it?
Yep.
Can you pull it up? That'd be great.
Can folks see it?
Yep. That's it. So essentially, it's a matter of going back to the same company, getting an update for that type of a sign with a post installed. And then confirm exactly what we want for having wording on it. But none of the wording or anything that should affect the price. It really right now is you need to get an updated price. What's the date on that? 16. So this is 5 years ago. So I'm sure there'll be a price increase 5 years later.
Everybody seen it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Leslie.
Sure.
All right. The next topic is the Diversity and Inclusion Committee meeting that myself, Leslie, and Bob Light attended. Whenever that was, a couple weeks ago anyway. Yeah, September 2nd. So Leslie, Bob, what do you think about our discussions with that committee?
Why don't you go first, Bob?
I don't know. It was, yeah, I'm not, I didn't see anything coming out of it. It was interesting as an introduction to what we're doing, but I wasn't really clear on where we want to go with them.
I think that they don't know where they want to go yet. They're just searching for information. They're trying to understand what the different committees in town do. It was clear that they didn't know who we were or why we existed, which is good. That means at least they're finding out that part out. So I wouldn't be critical of that. I think they're doing what they're supposed to do, is find out what all these groups do. But yeah, I'm not sure what will come of it.
No, I think that was worthwhile, and it was interesting
Yeah.
talking about some of the diversity themes of our history, which I
Right.
think came out, which was good.
Yeah, I was pleased actually. Just I didn't have high expectations, but I was pleased that they're going around and trying to find out what everybody else in different organizations of town do.
I think it's sort of good to have that in the back of our head. It kind of is another lens to look at projects through, or to consider. It's something that never would have occurred to me with historic, but I think it's a good thing to sort of keep in the back of our heads with everything we do.
Yeah, and I would be curious to see what they propose down the road, but it looked like they were thinking about links, linking us with cultural council, or linking how do we do things with other organizations that promote diversity. And, they seem to really be curious about the Native American history of the town. So I think time will tell. I'm anxious to see what they pull together for what the steps are. I mean, this is a very different from speaking with us is very different than when they speak with the town administrator to look at what the hiring practices are in town. It's very, very different angle. So I'm glad we participated for sure. I thought it was
Yeah,
interesting.
no, it was worthwhile, and I think from going forward, when we think about, for example, historical markers, anything that has to do with the theme of the Native American presence and also Civil War and abolition.
Yeah. Yeah,
Would be
You're right.
something to think about, yeah.
all right. So that was good. The historic preservation plan. So what I was hoping to do, and I don't have for you, is another section. It's in a draft form, but it's in the kind of draft form I don't let anybody see. Not even you, Leslie. But what I do, but I'm gonna look and I want to talk some things about it though. Yeah, that doesn't sound quite right. I'd like to review some of the things I've found because I'm finding them very fascinating. So let me share the screen. I think I'll do share the screen with this one. Let's see what we got. Okay, let's try that one again. Nope, it seems to be stuck on this thing. It's not this year. All right, let me try one more time. Is that, you guys seeing anything?
Yes,
All the words?
Yeah.
Don't read the words. I'm using them as highlights to just run through what I've been finding. So this section is the local historic district commission. You haven't seen this section yet. I've done a section on the historical commission and I've done a section on the historical society. This is under the chapter that has to do with preserving Northborough history. So this is a good education, a refresher of how this whole thing works. The first thing that's ever done for a local historic district is you have to have a study committee. Without a study committee, the ball doesn't get rolling. So in 1968, there was a study committee with Main Street as a local historic district. The study committee took 2 years, and then in 1971, they brought it in front of town meeting. So what happens with the study committee is they put together a report. This was done for Marie Niebuhr's house. This is the formality of it. The report is sent out to Mass Historical Commission because they have to say that it's appropriate. I may
Norm, you're cutting out.
Or it's frozen.
because my phone's ringing. So if I do, I'm sorry. I'll have to. I did. Am I back?
Yeah.
You're back. You're muted, Norm.
How about now?
No, we can hear
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. And what are you looking at on the screen?
You.
You. All right. So when it kicks out, it does all kinds of fun stuff. I love this. All right. Let me do this. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm having a problem getting back to the Zoom screen. All right, here it is. Now what are we looking at?
The same thing.
That again.
All right, thank you.
Page.
That took a while. So just to reiterate, this is how local historic districts are made. First thing is you have to have a committee that studies the historic district. The next thing they have to do is they have to write a formal report describing why the property should be in the district and listing all of the properties in the district in some detail. That report goes to the Historical Commission in Boston. It goes to the Board of Selectmen, and it goes to the owners of property, and it goes to the Planning Board. They all have comments on that. With those comments, then the report is revised into a final report to recommend that property to be as a local historic district. Then it's brought to town meeting. It's the Northborough town meeting votes that put it as a district. Okay, so that's the process. I want to go back again. In 1968, committee was formed. In 1971, they brought it to town meeting. There was some controversy by some of the owners not wanting to give up some, they have another group of people participate in any changes that they make on their building that you can see from the streets. So there was an issue there about private rights. It went to town meeting and it was voted at town meeting. It failed. It needs 2/3 majority to pass. It failed by 3 votes. The vote was somehow challenged. They did a second vote and it was called a secret ballot. So it's kind of interesting. I didn't know we could do that. And then it failed again by 4 votes. What they tried to do is the people that were promoting that local historic district for the center of town tried to reconsider the vote later in the meeting. And that's another way of getting an additional vote done. But the problem is too many people left. It was below the quorum for the meeting, so they couldn't pass the vote. So it failed. The bottom line, in 1971, when they put that on the list, Main Street, it failed in 1971. 2 years later, they brought it back to town meeting. They also brought it back with the historic district we currently have. But right now, I'm going to focus on the local historic district for Main Street, because that's a topic that's going to be of interest in the next few years. So they brought it back 2 years later. There was a lot of press about it. Again, they went to the different homeowners. There was a lot of pushback for the homeowners. The district is about 30, and it's even today it would be about 36 properties. So it's a pretty good sized district. There was a lot of pushback from the owners, so much so, and these are some of the comments. People that had businesses said it wasn't going to help their business. They were concerned it was going to hinder it. They were afraid there might be some loss on resale value of their property. It was called unconstitutional. There was also another group of people that thought it was very reasonable law. It was a very reasonable thing to do, especially with concern of a commercial sprawl along Main Street. But because there was so much resistance, they actually took it off the warrant a couple of days before town meeting. So this is the second time they tried to do a historic district on Main Street. It failed in 1973 because of pushback from the owners. And after that, in 1979, it was considered to try it again. So there's been some persistent people who were trying to make this work. I was able to find that they had a meeting to discuss it, but I was never able to find any meeting minutes of that meeting. And all subsequent meetings did not address it. So it appears that they felt in 1979 that maybe they wouldn't be able to make it fly again. It was interesting because there was one of the local papers had an article about it, and you could see right from the get-go that there was the resistance that there was in 1973 was still there in 1979. I'm keeping quite a bit of the detail in this report, primarily as a heads up, because if down the road the town wants to look at the historic homes along Main Street and put them in a district, I think a lot of the questions that were asked, 30 years ago, are going to be the same ones that are addressed today. So you'd really have to be prepared for that. Just as a backup, in 1973, some of you may already know this, but in 1973, they were going to put in 2 historic districts. The Main Street one they pulled and they didn't vote on, but they did vote on the one that's the current historic district today. I think I've got those notes in here. Yes. When it went to town meeting for the historic district of the Meeting House Common, first vote, it failed. So it did not pass 2/3 majority. It failed. What's interesting here is every owner in that district was for the district. It's kind of interesting that the people that were for the district own the properties in the district, and the vote said, no, we don't want the district. They waited a while until about 40 people left the meeting. They reconsidered the vote, and it passed by 25 votes. So everything seems to, regarding historic district voting at town hall, it's all comes down to 2 or 3 votes if it's going to pass or not. It's really touch and go, at least in the past. So I eventually you'll see this in some form that's readable, but when I was going through the files, I didn't realize that Main Street was considered for a local historic district 3 times already. So this would be a 4th, in due time if that becomes a topic.
Norman, the Meeting House Commons district, how many properties are in there?
9.
You said that 9 properties, and they all wanted to have it.
Everyone wanted it, yes. It was, the church wanted it. There were 2 properties that the town owned, they wanted it. And then the rest of them were private residences, private homes, and they all wanted it.
Yeah. What is, possibly for this section, what are the pros and cons of having a historic district? Why are people against it? I mean, I know why a property owner would be against it, because you have to seek permission to make a change to the outside of your house.
Correct.
What are the pros and the cons? Maybe that's
Well,
something.
I think that's the homework that has to be done. There's a lot of literature from the state about what the advantages of a district are and the like.
Okay.
To be honest with you, because this has got me thinking about a variety of things, because like I said, I think this is going to come up in the future. If you consider Main Street, if you consider where 135 comes in the center of town, and then you head west to a Dunkin' Donuts.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. There's documents on about 15 buildings that are antiques that were torn down. So if you want to continue if you want to continue the design of the Main Street between 135 and Dunkin' Donuts, then don't have a local historic district, because that's what will happen.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting how many buildings were taken down for all of those sites, or they burned down, and some of them were derelict. But it's that section of the town that's, I think personally, is not the prettiest part of Main Street. At one time was actually a nice residential section of town. It didn't used to be like it is now. All I wanted to do at this point was have you guys recognize some old history and how it played out and how it might play out differently or in the future.
So if I could comment about historic districts, I've done projects in several, and the shortcoming of most of their historic district guidelines is they don't recognize or handle new buildings in historic districts. So you got to factor that in. It's not just preserving what's there, but the new projects need to be appropriate and fit in without being, trying to replicate some historic style. So, I've done work in Salem and Concord and Sudbury, and it's brutal. They don't know what they're doing when it comes to a new structure. So keep that in mind. I think it's well worth it.
Depending how the Master Plan Implementation Committee finally gets up and running. I think it's going to be key for what they do for downtown, an evaluation and plans for the downtown district, the whole downtown. And I think part of that would be how do we address the older homes and how do we find a way to preserve them. So I think this will come up in due time, but not for a while. All right. Any other questions on that?
When was the Meeting House district finally approved?
It was approved at that 1973 meeting.
Oh,
Yeah, in 1973, they had 2 districts they were going to put in. They pulled one. They kept the Meeting House district in. And that did 2 things. It formed the historic district and formed the historic district commission because it needed the commission to monitor the district.
oh, but didn't you say that it failed the first time now?
Not it at the vote, it failed, and 20 minutes later or a half hour later, it passed.
Oh, okay.
There's a quirk in the town meeting system that some people are savvy to.
There was no motion to reconsider, I suppose.
That's correct. Leslie knows that.
Yeah.
All right, so on to new business. The Master Plan Implementation Committee has met. Millie is our representative on that committee, and so when she comes back in a month, we'll get an idea of where they are with that. I got a feeling it's mostly introduction to who's who at this point. It's a pretty big committee. The other one is this Thursday and Friday. I think I sent the link out to you before. Is the Massachusetts Historic Preservation Virtual Conference. Haven't done the virtual one before. I've been to 2 of them in the past where they're live. They're very informative. But what I'd like you to consider is for $25, and we can pay that out of our budget. You can have access to the virtual classes at any time. So you don't have to be Thursday and Friday. You can watch them at another time. There were a couple of good topics that would be of interest in general. So I guess should I bother finding the link just to bring you up to speed on what that was, or?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. Let's see. I think I got another notice just today.
Send it to me.
That's not that one. I can resend it around if I don't
Yeah.
find it real quick. I thought I got a notice just the other day. No, it's not. I'll send it. It's not popping. As soon as I say that, here it is. All right. Oops. Nope, that's not the one. That's not the one. So I couldn't find it real quick. I'll send it out. Just give it some thought.
So
New
what-
members. So we've got a formal alternate member with Amanda. She's been in for a month, and I know Tom and Lorna are both. It's a juggling act to coordinate with Town Hall to get you your interviews and the like. So just be patient. It'll happen. The whole not meeting in person stuff really throws a wrench into scheduling. So anything else anybody can think of? Any questions about anything?
Well, Norm, there is a new set of design guidelines that is being considered by the Design Review Committee for duplexes in town and some of the zoning districts that allow duplexes have a lot of historic properties. So it's not really strictly within this committee's bailiwick, but you need to be aware that they may be proposing design guidelines that may be adjacent to historic properties. But the design guidelines they're discussing do not clarify what the criteria are for design. They're kind of vague. They do talk about traditional neighborhood design, which is pretty much Main Street and South Street and Summer Street. But I've been urging them to be a little more clear in their language and what they intend. But it's something that's coming not only in these guidelines, but in the master plan and how people understand what is traditional or historic properties. So just alert people to watch for that.
Yeah, well, our other role, we have the two roles, the Historic District Commission role, and we also have the Historical Commission role. And from the Historical Commission's role, certainly, yeah, it would be good for us to be tuned in, Tom, to what's going on with any design reviews, just because you're right, there's antiques spotted all over town, dropped here and there. So that's a good heads up. Thanks, Tom. All right, anybody else? So what I owe people right now is the link for the meeting, for the conference. Okay.
So should we sign up directly on that conference?
Yeah, you should be able to sign up directly. I'm sure there's a link for payment with a charge card would be my guess. It's a $25 fee. I haven't done it yet. I'll do it for sure because there's a couple of topics that are like, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what some of these angles are. Different approaches to solving problems. Unless you just want to play this game tonight, the Brady Bunch, we can we can stop unless there's another topic to come up. All right. If we want to leave, we have to do it the official way. So I need a motion to adjourn from somebody.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Brian. Brian's the motion to adjourn. Who's going to second it?
Second,
Leslie's seconding it. So I do the roll call thing. Let's see if we want to move on. Motion to adjourn. Brian Smith.
I agree.
Brian Swanson.
Yes.
And Leslie.
yay.
Mr. DeShano.
Yeah, yes.
And I'm also a yes. So thank you for joining me tonight, joining us all